Nicholas, thank you very much for joining today, all the way from Buenos Aires.
Hi, Simon, and congrats for organizing this virtual event. I will not deny that I miss Miami.
Okay. Now, Nicholas is the CEO of Navent. It's a company that you co-founded 11 years ago, and you operate jobs and real estate sites throughout the Latin American markets. And I thought,
Yeah.
given the whole impact of the coronavirus crisis, and also the fact that there's a whole bunch of innovation and disruption occurring, that it would be great to chat with you around both sides, the job side and then the real estate side, about the trends that you see occurring and where you think the future of those businesses go. So let's start with, can you give us a snapshot of Navent?
Yeah, like you said, we're a classified company focusing jobs and real estate. We've been around the market for the past 20 years, and we operate today in 8 markets, including the biggest ones in Latin America, which are, of course, Brazil, Argentina, Mexico. And we started our initial encounter with classifieds was jobs. And then 10 years ago, from that experience in the job space and in Latin America, we moved into real estate because we thought, we had a tremendous opportunity in the region, and we had the team and knowledge to go and compete there as we are doing today,
Okay, now let's look at the job side, because it's an area that you and I have chatted quite a few times over the years, and we've always gone to real estate as the topic of conversation. But let's talk about jobs, and that's sort of where you guys started and have a lot of experience. What has been the impact of the whole coronavirus crisis on the jobs market for you? Not on the jobs market, but on the jobs board market.
Yeah, I think the impact has been tremendous. Most of the countries in Latin America are still in major lockdowns. I mean, if you look at Chile, Argentina, Peru, Ecuador, all those countries are mostly locked. So I think one of the first things that companies, the very first way in which companies have reacted to this crisis was by shutting all new hirings. So therefore, we have seen a significant drop in listings. And all the processes of search in most of the companies have been stopped, except a few exceptions, which are like the typical companies that have benefited from these trends, like e-commerce companies and other companies. So it has been much harder than in the real estate, because in real estate, still agents need to showcase their listings. Maybe they're just piling up contacts, working them on through the phone, and when lockdown is lifted, they can show their properties. But in jobs, it has been full stop until companies can redefine what the economy will be, what kind of target market they will face. So it has been a time of extreme contraction for the business. We have seen in Europe and in the US drops of 70% of listings, just to give you some sense.
So listings have fallen off a cliff. I assume on the other side, consumer demand is going through the roof, because a lot of people don't have jobs anymore.
Exactly. So what we're seeing is the consumer demand started to, as soon as the pandemic hit and lockdown started into places, all the traffic KPIs dropped. People were not looking for jobs, and now that they fear that their jobs might be in danger, they're starting to look, and we're seeing a huge rebound in visits and resume applications, which in the job side account for like the leads we discussed in the real estate side,
Okay. Now, what innovation has occurred in the last 2 or 3 months? Because we've talked about how this crisis has pushed companies to think about innovation, and basically taken some development cycles and make them much shorter. What innovation has been occurring in the jobs sector?
Well, I think it's a great question. I think, Navent, we spent 20 years in the region. So through every crisis we've come out stronger. When 20 years ago, when Argentina crashed and we have 7 presidents in 1 week, we launched our jobs platforms. Then 10 years ago, when we had the mortgage crisis in the US, we decided to go into the real estate sector. So now what we're doing, and I think this crisis will speed up, the innovation in both our verticals. In the case of jobs, we're following the typical tradition of, we have become the leading platform in which we attract resumes. We're a typical media company by which, we generate revenues through listings. We get a lot of resumes, and that's kind of the share of the market that we have. the big difference between jobs and real estate is the volume of information you handle in job, which is 10 times bigger, but you have millions of people looking for, with their resumes, millions of people looking for a job. So there you have a lot of information about users, what they're looking for, trends in the industry. So our first reaction to that was to provide the companies with software to process that information. So, we moved from a traditional listing business to a software platform in which, we provide ATS, applicant tracking systems, for a lot of companies that need to handle this volume. And now what we have started to do is to get into what we define the transaction for the job space, which is basically creating, a curated marketplace for recruitment. So today, small companies that do not have an HR consultant, our services might create them a problem because of the volume of resumes they would get for a single search. But if they wanted to go to a traditional recruiting firm, they would need to pay 1 or 2 salaries for that position. So what we have done is, we have used the leverage, the brand, the respectability, the trust that customers have in our brand to create a marketplace in which, we connect these guys with independent recruiters, and then we make sure that the whole process is complete in a properly manner, in time, and obviously at a 50% discount compared to traditional ways of recruitment. So we're kind of Uberizing recruitment in Latin America, which we think is a huge opportunity. Just to give you the total addressable market for traditional recruitment in LATAM is $6 billion compared to $300 or $400 million of that you have in the recruitment space. So we think there is a lot of space there to innovate. And what we're trying to do now is we are investing a lot into AI to figure out what are the resumes, giving all the information. What are the resumes that are most likely to work for a recruiter, given their historic hirings, etc., that we also know because they use our ATS. So we're working with recruiters in investing in AI so that we can produce candidates much more fast than they want today.
Okay, so so really it feels like that the transaction value is the traditional recruiting fee that used to go to a recruiter, and you're trying to get some of that value, not just take money for the advertisement.
Exactly. Now, we think that within a couple of years, we can be one of the biggest recruiters in LATAM for sure, given our size and given the reach that we have, and given the fact that our customer acquisition is extremely low. But it's like, we get resumes, given our brand position, we're getting all these resumes for free. And companies have an objective problem, which is, unlike, you don't have a problem of leads management in the real estate. On average, you get 2-3 leads per listing, but in resumes, you get 700 to 1,000 resumes per listing. So that's why we call the industrial problem of being too successful or over delivering. That creates these new type of problems, no?
Okay. So then how important are things like AI, artificial intelligence, to the future success of your business? Because getting through 700 resumes for a job is quite critical. And you need to either provide the best candidate or the best 5 candidates for the company to interview and finish whatever their process looks like. So how do you think about driving technology even deeper into the recruitment industry?
I think that's going to be key. I think, I think we're going to come out of this crisis with companies, with smaller staffs. The recruitment budgets are going to reduce significantly. So we know that this is a moment in change in terms of, if a Fortune 500 company used to work with a typical, recruitment firm, these guys will now have to do the same for half the cost that they were doing it before. So these type of tools will enable us to deliver better services than the traditional way of searching people, which implied only humans, no?
Yes. Now let's look at real estate for a second. Very different type of market. What is and as you mentioned before, that the agents kept going because they had to keep going. They had to build up their supply of buyers, because they, once lockdown finishes, they want to then start showing homes and starting to move people through the transaction process. Yes. What innovation has occurred for you and the industry during this whole lockdown period?
I think there's been a lot of chat about virtual tours, at this stage in order to digitalize the whole experience. I think that is kind of hard. People actually want to see their properties. So when you start looking at how many virtual tools are available in all the listing platforms, that accounts for at least for no more than 1% of total listings involving the experience, you know. So I think the big transformation is that we're gonna see. I think all of our platforms are you know, a lot of panelists that have gone through this conference have talked about getting deeper into transaction, and I think this pandemic has you know, accelerated those type of investments. Obviously, for different platforms or for different companies, getting to the transactions means different kind of things. No, for us, for Navit, it means like you know we have our leading brands in these markets where we operate. We have the traffic, we have data, we have CRMs in place which connect agents, their listings with our portals, and now we're getting into the transaction. For us, transaction means you know, enabling, you know, streaming financial services better than there are today. You know, we're not getting into the iBuyer ecosystem, and we're not there. Our mission is not to replace the agent. You know, there's been a lot of talk about the death of agents, and I think it's been kind of, you know, there used to be, you know, us in Latin America love soccer, and you know, when there was this great coach that said, "Why didn't you win the match?" And the guy said, "You know, the other team plays as well, no?" So my feeling is that agents will be able to adapt, will be able to access technology that will make them greater. Obviously, the guys that keep on working on traditional levels, that they think that the only added value proposition is to show an apartment, probably those guys are already dead and they just don't know it. But there are a lot of companies, a lot of brokerage firms heavily investing in technology, and we see ourselves as a platform of giving them the tools so that they can work better, be more efficient, and compete against, you know, call them, you know, new full online brokerage firms. So, you know, I think you can provide them with great websites for zero cost. You can provide them with great CRMs for really low cost. You can provide them with technology. You can provide them with data. And we're working with a lot of companies into investing, giving them the tools so that they can plug into our platform and they can be more, you know, they can provide more value by telling their customers what the price of our property should be, what is the typical demand for that property within that neighborhood, and what are the prices that would speed up the transformation. So we think, you know, we're out there not to replace the agents. We're there to enable them with the top of the line technology that we believe we're developing from our company, no?
Okay, which makes a lot of sense. Now, one of the interesting things is in Brazil, where you have Imovaweb, and you have OLX and its moves in that market, and their thoughts of how they get into the transaction, or at least starting to think about that process. What opportunities does that create for you in the Brazilian market?
I think, you know, typically when you have a big merge within big companies, there is a time in which they need to adjust and adapt to what the new company or the new DNA of the company will be. I think that gives us a window of opportunity to be faster than our competitors. And I think, you know, there are a lot of interesting business models in Brazil. There's been a lot of talk about the rentals, Quinto Andar, and the loft type of guys. I think they have shown a way in which we can all add value, you know. So I guess I used to remember that, you know, the first smartphone in the market was the Palm Treo, and now it's practically gone. So I think that this idea that one only will dominate the lease guarantees for rentals will not happen in Brazil, and everyone will get into the game, because the agents need to defend that revenue stream, which is property management. So I think insurance will get, I think Quinto Andar has done a tremendous job into lowering entry costs, but I think there's a lot to be done in Brazil, and the advantage that platforms like Imobilweb have in Brazil is that simply they have millions of free visits that trust our brand and have been coming to our platform. And there are plenty of agents now in this ecosystem in which they're not able to sell, that they're looking for new solution or new revenue streams. So also customers are more open to ideas in this type of context. So they're open to looking at the rental better. They're open to distributing mortgages or leases as a network for your platform, and then discussing revenue sharing. Obviously, all of this is complicated and will take a long time. But I do believe, you know, I mean, it took Mercado Libre to have the payment solution in place a couple of years to develop. So I think we're going to walk that long path, because we believe that there is a lot of value to create in the whole journey for the consumer, no?
Okay, which makes a lot of sense. Now traditionally, portals or classified businesses have operated one site. And in that site, it was rentals and for sale and new developments, everything sort of banged together in similar formats. How do you think about, but if you're getting more into the transaction and becoming more of an enabler to the industry, but they're actually different parts of the industry, new development, established home, rentals, how do you think about structuring your business to really service each of those segments?
I think, you know, the idea is to understand the complexities of each segment. You know, when you look at all these platforms available in Brazil, they're all buying traffic from platforms like ours and the competitors. So they need the traffic. So they need to showcase their listings. And when you start looking at how much content they have vis-a-vis rental, vis-a-vis the rental content of other platforms, they only have a very small portion of the content, which is kind of bad for the consumer, because the consumer, the first mission is to find the property they want. Then if you digitize the whole thing, we can start talking from there, you know, but the first thing that needs to happen is I need to find a property. So I think that in terms of new developments, the challenge with new developments is that they always account for a really small portion of the total listings. So they usually attack a very small portion of the traffic. So if you and consumers not necessarily are looking for old versus new apartment. It's not like the cars market. They're looking for apartments by location and pricing mostly, you know. So I think in terms of developments traditionally have paid on a lead per basis. They just want to buy traffic as a bulk, and in that context, you know, Facebook and other platforms have become, you know, significant. The problem is that a lot of time they want more qualified leads. So we think we can compete there by providing more qualified leads. So what does this mean? We have like Smart Lead 1.0 today, which basically understands what type of leads has a consumer done and explains whether this consumer is being consistent or he's just trafficking around, no? So if you're consistent and you're looking for a property within Jardins, which is a neighborhood in Sao Paulo, you want to see that guy is only looking there and it's not looking in Czechoslovakia, and then he went to look properties in. So you need to look at the consistency, the price consistency. And then what we will do to that lead, we will also add financial history. Since we're starting to, you know, understand the financial track record of these guys, we will also be able to provide, you know, consistent lead who have financial capacity to acquire leads. So we think we can create a lot of value there for the new developments and keep on adding more services to the whole ecosystem, no?
Okay, so that which makes a lot of sense. I think, then to what extent do you look at businesses like Quinto Andar, Loft, Infocasters, who knows, right? There's a whole bunch of these guys who are focusing on different aspects of the value chain. And how do you look at them for inspiration or as competitors in the market?
Well, I think you know, I think Quinto Andar has done a great job in terms of providing a better consumer experience for the rentals. No, I think that's undeniable, and I think there's a lot of inspiration there, and I think they solved the problem not only by creating content, because the content across most platforms is always the same, regardless of what the claim is. But I think what they have tackled really well was the insurance part of the rental lease. No, I think they have tackled that and they've solved a big bottleneck. But I think there are different bottlenecks in the transaction. So typically, you know, when a guy moves into a new apartment, they have to pay 3 or 4 months upfront in terms of, you know, moving deposit, fixing the apartment. So there might be, if we can connect with different fintech, and we know that this guy is credit worthy, we can maybe, you know, just instead of having the guy put up 4 months in advance, we can, you know, have him, you know, like keep on paying in easy installments and facilitating people moving to different places. So I think there's the fintech movement that will enable companies like ours to plug into them much easier, rather than creating a new system in which to connect with the back end of banks, which is extremely hard. And I think one of your panelists have talked, and to create all that pipeline. I think that if we can connect to different fintechs who have we can create partnerships that create great value for the consumers. No, and I think that's going to be the road for us.
Okay, and what's interesting that you identified there is it doesn't matter if you're looking at new development sales, established home sales, rentals. It's all about identifying the process from end to end, identifying where the bottlenecks are, where the real pain points are. For example, you know, the first 4 months you have to pay rental or insurance or whatever, and then providing a simple solution to relieve the bottleneck, and then stitching it into the end-to-end process.
Yeah, and that simple solution for me needs to be embedded within the rent of the monthly rent of the apartment. That needs to be all compressed within that at a cheap price, at a respectable price, so that the consumer knows that he moves into an apartment and he knows he doesn't need to put 4 months in advance. He knows that it's insured against fire and other things, and he can move easily without this being, you know, a significant hit on his financial condition. So I think, and the challenge about this is that each Latin American market is different. So it's not like a fintech solution works for all the markets. So when you look at, the complexities of Mexico and you compare them with the complexities of Peru in terms of the rental, you need to have a lot of boots on the ground to understand, you know, what a killer user experience will look like in different markets, given different the evolution of the financial system in each of these countries.
Okay, Nicholas, thank you very much. We're nearly finished the conference. I love what you guys are doing in Venn. I think you've got some interesting challenges, having to think about the jobs market separately from the real estate market. They've both got, you know, many interesting challenges within them, and then you've got your other more complex nature is that you've got everything from Mexico right down to Argentina, and the very different markets and the different nuances within those markets. So congratulations for building the business as well as you've done with all those complexities. And thank you for chatting with us in the conference.
Thank you, Simon, for pulling this virtual conference on. And yeah, like you said, we are a very ambitious, a competitive team, you know, and maybe if you accuse us of aiming too high, I would say that maybe I'm guilty as charged.
Okay. Yes, but if you want to get to the moon, you've got to aim high.
I agree. There's no other way.
Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you for participating.
Bye-bye.
Bye.